manifests because of piety and spiritual achievement, or the internal senses, such as the mind and intelligence. The word pradipaya means unto him who manifests or illumines. Thus here the Nagapatnis are addressing the Supreme Lord as he who manifests all material and spiritual qualities and who causes the living entities to be conscious. One can see the Lord by going beyond the screen of material nature, and therefore he's called Gunatma Chadanaya. If one methodically and intelligently studies the functioning of the material qualities, he will ultimately conclude that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that he exhibits his illusory potency to bewilder those who do not surrender unto him. The Lord is never affected by the modes of material nature, being their witness, and thus he is called Guna Drastre. The word Sva indicates one's own, and thus Svasangvide means that Lord Krishna can be known only by his own people, the devotees, and also that ultimately only the Lord can know himself perfectly. Therefore we should take Lord Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita and immediately come to the right conclusion, full surrender to the Lord's lotus feet. Thus we should humbly glorify the Lord, following the example of the Naga Patnis. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamhayam Dadhati Svapadantikam Jayasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripadam maham vande Sri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. With the blessings of the Vaishnavas, we're very fortunate to be here and to be allowed to speak about Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna has very unique qualities that set him apart even from the Vishnu incarnations. And one of them is that he performs very sweet pastimes, and he has loving exchanges with his intimate devotees. We are hearing in 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam that the Devas were watching Lord Krishna's rasa dance. And while we were discussing this topic amongst friends in Mayapur, we had the question arose that how come the Devas are allowed to see Lord Krishna's rasa dance? Because the Devas are not pure devotees for the most part. So how come they are allowed to watch the Lord's intimate pastime with his most confidential devotees? That rasa dance that even Lakshmi Devi herself was not allowed entrance was being watched by the demigods in their airplanes assembling in the sky. So these questions come up, and then we have to take shelter in our acharyas because they have given perfect explanation to these topics. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Lord Krishna, like a perfect actor, here this example is given of an actor. Lord Krishna is visible to the Devas. They can see his dancing, but they cannot see the gopis. And they can also not see how Krishna is interacting with the gopis. So they have limited access to that pastime. They only see the Lord. They don't see his loving devotees, nor the exchanges between them. In the same way here, it is explained that the Lord is like an actor, and he is manifesting his internal and external potencies, by his different dresses, the different roles that he plays, and by his own energies that he exhibits and manifests, he's covered by those energies. And according to his own will and desire, he allows the audience to perceive him up to a certain degree, up to a certain extent. Now, according to his desire, he can lift that veil. He can remove that covering and manifest himself more fully and more completely, according to the desire and the attitude of the devotee. So here the Nagapatnis are praying to Lord Krishna, and they're glorifying him. In the first verse, we hear a prayer that is coming in different varieties, different versions, in many, many parts of our literatures. So when we hear this, we should not think, oh, they're simply repeating something that they have heard somewhere. What is their realization? But in Krishna consciousness, we are strictly following the easy path. We are not here to invent something new. We are here to follow in the footsteps of our predecessor acharyas and to repeat the instructions that they have given us. So they're glorifying the Lord in his wonderful qualities. And so one of these qualities is that the Lord is standing apart from all this material creation, from all these gunas, this material manifestation, as a witness. He's the creator of this entire manifestation. At the same time, he's distinctly apart, and he is observing. And he is only to be fully known by his own devotees, sva jana, his own people. He preserves the right to be known by those who are following his instructions. So, the people who are trying to approach the Lord through jnana, through karma, and through yoga, they cannot do so. Yenye ramidaksha vimukta maninas, tvayasta vishuddha buddhaya, aruya krichrena paramat padamatata, patantyano nadrita yusmad angrayaha. Because of their intelligence being clouded, they are not pure-hearted. Therefore, they cannot perceive the Lord as he is, in his true form, revealing his pastimes with his devotees. So in the purport, it is stated that we should methodically and intelligently study the nature and activity and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And in this way, we can gain some understanding about his nature. Janma karma chame divyang evang yoveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. If we are studying about the nature of Krishna, his quality, his activity, his pastimes, in the association of devotees, then we can gain some understanding and we can get back to the spiritual abode. Otherwise, if you're acting under the ahankar principle, the principle of I am the controller and I am the doer, then we will be known as vimudhatmas or duratmas, as small-hearted, miserly living entities. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. But if we want to be known as sumedasa, as intelligent, we should take up this process of Harinam Sankirtan as it has been given to us by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the previous acharyas. So, Gopkumar was telling the Brahmin in Mathura that the most convincing form of evidence is personal testimony. It is not the highest praman, but it is the most convincing praman. That's why we love to hear stories of devotees. How did I come to Krishna consciousness? I think that was one of the most popular columns in Back to Godhead magazine. And even Srila Prabhupada liked it a lot. devotees would write, how I came to Krishna consciousness. And everybody is very much interested, very much enthused to hear about that topic. So along those lines, I would like to share a couple of stories. I was just recently in Puri, trying to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books, and I met one young boy from Slovakia. And when I showed him one of Prabhupada's books, he held the book and he said to me, these were his exact words, "I was born in the dense darkness of ignorance, but somehow, by the mercy of the spiritual master," and he quoted exactly the translation of Om Ajnana-Timirandasya, even though he did not know that shloka. But he just gave it in his own words, in his own rendition. So he had gotten Srila Prabhupada's books because his sister is a devotee. But he said for many, many years he did not want to have anything to do with the devotees. In fact, he kept away and he did not become involved with Krishna consciousness. But then, when she invited him for this trip to India, and he firsthand experienced the holy dhams and experienced the devotees of Krishna, he concluded, now I see, now I can see, because of the mercy of the devotees. So, I would like to speak about one of my heroes that is exemplifying some of these qualities that the Nagapatnis are speaking about here. They're exemplifying simplicity. They are sharing their love and appreciation for the Supreme Lord by offering heartfelt prayers. They're not duplicitous. They're not trying to give some talk above their level of realization, but they're speaking from the heart. So recently, one of our dear godbrothers in Italy, Madhavananda Prabhu, he left this world at a very young age, and most of you may probably have never met him, but he was a very extraordinary personality. Even though he had a terminal disease which was very painful, he would never speak about himself. I was with him on many occasions, but I never heard him talk about himself, nor about his condition, nor about his disability. He was always enthusiastic to do service. Now, in his condition and in his position, he was not able to do prominent or spectacular type of things. He was simply around, doing whatever humble chores were available. So, he was loved by everyone. I never heard him speak one bad word about any devotee in his whole time that I was with him. So, he is exemplifying for me the quality of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, which means having God within. Theos, theology, means the science or the knowledge of God. Entheos, en means inward, theos, having God within. So because he carried God within, he was always guided and inspired and enthused by the presence of God. In English, in the English rendition of the word enthusiasm, it is explained as being like possessed or being a possession of God. Now we know nowadays these words have become estranged from their original meaning. Nowadays you can become enthusiastic about so many things. Like also formerly holy days were holy days. And now you can go on holiday to, so many destinations. So formerly being enthusiastic meant you were enthused or filled with God and the will and desire of God. And that was moved you in your life. So Madhavananda was very enthusiastic. He was always moved by God because he had no ulterior motive. He did not have a personal agenda that he felt it was worthwhile to engage in. So he was very enthusiastic. And he also exemplified to me the quality of unity. Nowadays, unity is one of the most difficult commodities. It is one of the most difficult challenges in the material world as well as in spiritual organizations, because we all have our own natures, our own perceptions, our own views, our own desires, and we want to do things according to our own style. But to work together in unity is the greatest challenge. To actually do the seva, to get the work done, is not so difficult. It's not so complicated. If we can manage to be unified, if we can actually agree on the same principle. So, unity is defined as a state or quality of being in harmony or in accord, as a unification, being one in purpose. That is the definition of unity. And from that, all strength and all potency arises. Now again, the ahankar principle is keeping us away from this unity, because we are identifying ourselves as the karta, as the doer, and as the controller and enjoyer of our activities. We are becoming separate. We're becoming separated from the unity, from the sangha of the devotees. And we are doing our own little thing, which we think is very nice. Why? Because it's my own little thing. So recently also I was in Udupi distributing Prabhupada's books around Krishna Mat on Cart Street. And I had some quite profound realization, because Udupi is a very special place. There's a very traditional and very devoted and very orthodox Vaishnav community following in the line of Srila Madhavacharya. So you meet many very special souls and many pilgrims who go there. So I was just walking around Cart Street, approaching people, giving them small books, and doing my own little thing and feeling very happy about what I was doing. Then one Pandit who just came from giving class, and he was still in his full regalia, dressed in his Brahmin Pandit outlook, and he was carrying many books under his arm, and he was followed by some disciples. And I approached him and I showed him the books, and everybody was feeling kind of offended. Why are you trying to teach ABCs to our PhD, to our Grand Master of philosophy? Don't you know who this is? And so, the Pandit, seeing my deplorable state, he just asked me one question: what is your qualification? So I was a little bit shocked, and it made me think, well, what is my qualification? Then I thought for a moment, and then I concluded, I have no qualification. Now we know, according to our tradition, if we truly realize that we're unqualified, that we have no qualification, that is our qualification. But I thought he will not appreciate this answer. He will not appreciate if I tell him I have no qualification. And he will ask, then what are you doing here? So I just quoted the verse, Gopi Bharta Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. I have no qualification, but I am simply the humble servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the predecessor acharyas who are serving Srimati Radharani, who is serving Lord Krishna. And he smiled and he said, very nice. And he gave me a donation and took the book. And all his disciples were kind of a little bit surprised. So, by our own, we have no qualification. We are simply came in contact through the mercy of the devotees. And this way we have become connected like a speck of dust to the lotus feet of the Guru Parampara. And that is our only aspiration. That is our only hope. It's like in the previous verses, it was stated also in these prayers of the Nagapatnis that We may not know Krishna, but we may know a pure devotee of Krishna. So we should serve and humbly inquire from that pure devotee. And in this way we can please Krishna. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. And the nature of the pure devotee is that he's always enthusing everyone in the science and practice of Krishna consciousness. Just like Lord Chaitanya. When Jagadananda Pandit felt despondent because Lord Chaitanya had induced him to break that pot of sandalwood oil that he wanted to offer. Lord Chaitanya had refused that oil. So Jagadananda Pandit, he became very mad in his rage. And he said, "What oil? What oil are you talking about?" And he broke it. And then he went into his room and he fasted. But Lord Chaitanya knew how the heart of Jagadananda Pandit, he knew the heart of his devotee. So after some time, he went and he knocked on his door. And he said, "Jagadananda Pandit, I know you're in there." And there was no reply. He said, "Okay, I'm going to the ocean now to take my bath. And then I'm coming back and I want to eat lunch. You should cook lunch for me." So immediately he heard somebody got up. Somebody jumped up. Jagadananda Pandit was very enthusiastic. Oh, why? Because Lord Chaitanya knew his heart. He knew how to inspire him, how to enthuse him. So in the same way, the spiritual master is very expert in enthusing all his followers and all his disciples in the devotional service of Krishna. A few years back, I was in Mayapur and I was also feeling quite despondent because many things in my life were not going the way which I wanted them to go. And it was not a very good situation. So I was in front of the conch building and my spiritual master came down and he saw me in that state and he walked up to me and he asked me, "Are you still cooking?" And I said, "Well, yes." And he said, "Can I come to lunch?" I said, "Yes." And then he said, "Can I bring some brahmacharis?" I said, "Yes, as many as you like." So he saw that my situation and he dealt with it in a way as to enthuse me, in a way as to inspire me. Now, amongst God brothers, amongst equals, it is very important to have this non-competitive nature. We're not sharing realizations or stories in order to show off or in order to show that I was there or I witnessed this or I witnessed that. But we are simply remembering our wonderful heritage, our great tradition, and we're simply showing our appreciation. Every living entity has an appreciating capacity. Appreciating capacity. AC. What is your appreciating capacity? According to our appreciating capacity, whatever you appreciate, appreciates. And what qualities we appreciate, those qualities we'll start imbibing. So, if we become appreciative of other devotees and their qualities, their service, their dedication, then those qualities will rub off on us and we'll also imbibe those qualities. So recently I was in Kumbh Mela and I became very appreciative of the great, wonderful preaching activities, especially of the devotees of Radha Gopinath Mandir, who served more than 5,000 full meals of prasadam every day to the devotees and pilgrims there. It created great level of enthusiasm in the crowds and also in the devotees. Because the situation was a little bit austere. There was some slight inconvenience. But because of the prasadam and the service attitude of the devotees, it became very attractive, very wonderful and auspicious. So this appreciating capacity is there in the heart of every living entity. And we can fan it by a proper association, or we can smother it by covering it under the ahankara principle. So to become more conscientious and more aware of these facts is the process of Krishna consciousness. In the Nectar of Instruction, in the 5th shloka, there is this explanation of the qualities of a pure devotee. And it says, Nindari Shunya, a person who is free from the propensity to criticize others. That is a very estimable, a very highly laudable quality that I saw in Madhavananda Prabhu and in so many of the devotees here that are never gossiping, that are never criticizing others. Not even they're not criticizing, they're free from the propensity to criticize others. Sometimes we think, oh, I can see faults. I am very qualified because I can see what is wrong. But that is no qualification whatsoever. I don't think that they have analysts in the spiritual world. People are keeping track and charts. Okay, what happened? What went wrong? Like that. No. Everybody is simply happy serving Krishna in whichever capacity they're doing so, and appreciating everybody else being engaged in Krishna's service. Srila Prabhupada, he was appreciating his god brothers, and he was even inviting them to come and take leading roles in his mission, which they did not do, but he was seeing himself as the servant. His own spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, got 2 instructions from his guru when he took initiation from Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Never accept any disciples and never leave Mayapur. Those were the 2 instructions that he got from his Gurudev. And when he was asked, how did he follow these instructions? Because he accepted 60,000 disciples. So it's an apparent contradiction. An analyst will say, ha! We have a fault here. He claims to be so great, but look at him. He's not following the order. He said that my Gurudev has appeared as all of my students and disciples. So they're not my disciples. They're manifestations of my spiritual master. So he saw all of his students as his spiritual masters, and he served them as he would serve his Gurudev. And when he went to Calcutta to open the Chaitanya mission, the Chaitanya Mat, he did not go there to associate with the people of Calcutta and the activities of Calcutta, but he always resided in Sriram Mayapur, because the Chaitanya Mat was a manifestation of Sriram Mayapur. So wherever he went, he created the same Sangha, the same type of activities. So in the same way, we have received the instructions from our predecessors, from our spiritual masters. It is our great fortune to strive for unity and to work together cooperatively in a non-competitive spirit, to serve each other, to appreciate each other, to love each other, in order to imbibe this enthusiasm, to be also moved by God within our hearts. Just like the Nagapatnis, they were moved by God in their hearts. And Kaliya, he followed his wives, which for such a big person like Kaliya was quite a humbling activity. But he had gotten this good sense beaten into him, because Krishna danced on his many hoods, and he kicked all the ahankar, all the poison and vile, and all that was purged from him. So in the same way, whatever is separating us from Krishna, we can be sure that it will be purged from our existence, either willingly or forcefully. So Krishna has his unique way by attracting all living entities through his extraordinary pastimes, his flute playing, his dancing, and by manifesting himself through the heart of his devotees. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi.